Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever met someone who barely says a word, yet somehow completely captures the curiosity of the entire room? You know the type. They don't overshare, they rarely react impulsively, and they definitely aren't broadcasting every passing thought. Today, we're diving into the hidden psychological reasons why quiet people often seem completely impossible to read. Once we uncover these secrets, silence is never going to look exactly the same again.
To really picture this dynamic, just imagine a vibrant, incredibly noisy cafe. It's totally packed with loud, energetic people expressing their thoughts, complaining about their days, just laughing boisterously. Now picture one calm individual sitting in the corner in complete silence. Naturally, everyone around them starts wondering exactly what is going on in their mind. People might assume this person is overly shy, or maybe secretly judging everyone, or, perhaps just naturally arrogant. But the actual truth? It's entirely different.
You see, human brains constantly crave information. The mind basically acts like a prediction machine, right? It's constantly trying to anticipate behavior and emotions by watching facial expressions, listening to words, and noticing those tiny shifts in body language. But silence? Well, silence provides almost zero clues. When someone gives very little behavioral data, the mind just naturally starts filling in the blanks. That severe lack of information is exactly what makes silence feel so captivating and, honestly, mysterious. Moving into Section 1. Revealing less, guessing more. Think about the huge contrast here. On one side, we have the oversharer, the person who details literally every single aspect of their work, their fleeting feelings, and exactly what they had for lunch. On the absolute opposite side, we have the quiet listener, someone who just smiles politely and answers questions with a few very carefully chosen words. When trying to figure out who's easier to understand, well, it's obviously the one providing the endless stream of verbal data.
So the real game changer here is a psychological concept called self-disclosure. Basically, this is the act of revealing personal information to others, which makes a person's behavior significantly easier to predict. Quiet individuals simply reveal less. They aren't intentionally hiding dark secrets, they just prefer to think before speaking. This leaves everyone else with far fewer clues, literally forcing their predictive brains to guess what's going on behind that quiet exterior.
Let's jump to Section 2, Observing over speaking.
While everyone else is busy talking away, quiet people are spending their time actively observing. They're gathering massive amounts of unspoken data. They are constantly analyzing facial expressions, reading subtle shifts in body language, noting the exact tone of voice being used, and catching those tiny details that slip right past the loudest people in the room. So make no mistake, silence absolutely does not equal inattention.
The psychology here actually points to a pretty fascinating dynamic. The more someone observes, the less they feel the urgent need to speak. Because they are quietly gathering so much unspoken data, they often understand the dynamics of the room perfectly without ever needing to add a single word to the conversation. They already know exactly what's happening simply because they took the time to watch.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ambiguity effect.
So, what happens when people realize they aren't getting any conversational feedback? Well, it triggers this rapid-fire panic of internal questions. The brain instantly starts asking, wait, are they annoyed? Are they angry right now? Are they judging everyone in this room? That complete lack of verbal reassurance creates a sudden and very real spike of anxiety for the observer.
In psychology, this is known as ambiguity. Ambiguity is basically a lack of information that causes the brain to automatically fill in the blanks. And because human brains absolutely despise missing information, they'll often create entirely false narratives just to feel safe. People will assume a quiet person is arrogant or cold simply because their brains cannot handle the missing data. The quiet person might just be totally comfortable in the silence, but the ambiguity forces others to invent a completely fictional story.
Now let's explore Section 4, Internal Emotional Processing.
Just consider the drastically different ways people react to a really stressful day. Many individuals instantly turn to external venting, immediately expressing their stress to absolutely anyone willing to listen. They process everything by speaking out loud. But in stark contrast, quiet individuals prefer internal processing. They choose to take a step back, think deeply, and replay the entire situation in their minds before ever saying a single word.
Because of this internal processing, their reactions are often delayed. But here is the kicker. Delayed reactions do not equal a lack of emotion. To outsiders, taking longer to respond can make someone seem emotionally distant or, totally impossible to read. However, by the time they finally choose to speak, they've already thoroughly analyzed and processed the exact same intense emotions that everyone else reacted to instantly.
That immense depth of emotion is absolutely there. It's just being managed internally.
Moving into Section 5, the appeal of mystery.
Psychologists have long recognized a fundamental truth about human nature, captured beautifully right here. Uncertainty increases curiosity. Think about it. When someone lays everything out on the table, there is nothing left to wonder about. But when people are presented with a composed, silent individual, their imagination instantly takes over and their curiosity spikes dramatically. The less that's known, the more the brain desperately wants to figure the whole thing out. And this process happens so naturally. First, people encounter a quiet person. Second, they experience a sudden lack of behavioral information. And third, their imagination steps in and creates a profound sense of mystery. But it's absolutely crucial to understand that this mystery isn't some intentional strategy. Quiet people aren't trying to act like mysterious movie characters. It's simply a natural byproduct of an unreadable exterior, which leaves vast amounts of space for everyone else's imagination to just run wild.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, rethinking quiet people.
Far from being a negative trait, silence is often a sign of incredible mental activity. It represents deep listening, careful observation, sophisticated internal emotional processing, and highly thoughtful deliberation. So the next time you encounter someone composed and silent, remember they are likely not judging you and they are definitely not hiding. They are simply taking the time to listen and process the world on a much, much deeper level.
Which leads us to one final lingering thought. Are the hardest people to read simply the ones holding on to the most fascinating thoughts never said out loud? Perhaps being incredibly difficult to read is not a weakness at all, but rather a profound, thoughtful way of moving through the world, one that leaves everyone else endlessly wanting to know more.